Now, for those of you that missed it, I've just spent 48 hours in Benidorm for my mate's stag do. Unfortunately, he died 2 years ago, but he always wanted to go there on a stag do, so we went there in honour of him. It's the least we could do. And one of the things I noticed was that they now have the new European passport system thing, which is very, very efficient. It has to be said. You simply walk up to the gate, you slap your passport down, it reads it, it looks at your face, it matches the two things up and goes, on you go. Very, very simple and efficient system that they've just spent multi-million pounds on installing in airports across Europe. Which makes you wonder why they would feel the need to bring in a digital ID system across the whole of Europe. Now, the one thing with the passport system that really confused me was you went through and then you still had to stop and see the bloke in the booth so he could stamp your passport. Well, I didn't think passport stamps were really a thing anymore, but they seem to have come back into fashion quite big time. Because everywhere you go, you seem to get your passport stamped now. Never happened for years. But B, why, if you've already gone through there, do you then need to go there? Is it because they don't want to put these people out of work and they've got to give them something to do? Now they don't check passports anymore. So they just give them a stamp and they just sit there and go, junk, 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 junk. I mean, quite frankly, if you're doing that for 8 hours a day, you're earning your money. Send me fucking loopy. So it was really weird that the passport system, which appears to work really, really well, it's really efficient. If, of course, you have a passport and identification and are happy to travel through the normal routes. The only people it doesn't seem to work that well for are the people trying to get into another country illegally. Then the passport system doesn't work. So that's the justification for bringing in digital ID for everyone. All us people that use the passport system, and it works perfectly well, now have to suffer because a few people want to come in illegally. That's like me putting a sentry on my door with an Uzi and an AK-47 and making every single person that goes through the door get patted down and go through security because once somebody tried to burgle me. It doesn't make any sense. Now, what you won't have seen on the mainstream media, because they're not covering it at all, is in Italy, they've worked this out. And the Italians, when they're not sitting on fences or building really great cars, you know, the two things that they're famous for, no, they don't sit on fences. They jump over the other side of the fence. Switzerland sit on fences. The Italians will think nothing of switching sides. But when they're not doing either of those things, they like a good riot. So they're having one right now. It's going on. It is kicking off in Italy big time. You can see it. It's all over Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and social media channels. But of course, you won't see any of this on the news because the news doesn't want to tell you the truth. It wants to tell you what you need to know, not what they want you to know. No, it's what they want you to know, not what you need to know. Got that the wrong way around. It's weird. Jesus, I got to go out again tomorrow. So it's complete radio silence. There's nothing about it anywhere. But by 2026, every member of the European Union, that's country, not person, every member of the European Union has to have digital ID in their country. Has to. We don't. We're not in the EU. But we're having it anyway because two-tier wants us to be in the EU, so we better carry on with all the stuff like we are in the EU, even though we're not in the EU. But that's technically a Brexit thing. But it's much like Blackadder going to spy on our spy while you spy on the spy who's looking for the spy. It's that type of thing. So for some reason, we're now having digital ID forced upon us. There were more statements again this week about it. It's happening. Nobody wants it. Nobody's asked for it. It wasn't in the manifesto. Nobody voted for it. but we're having it, whether we like it or not, because Larry Fink, boss of BlackRock, video for tomorrow that is, has decreed, along with the WEF, the WHO and the UN, that digital ID will become a thing, because then they can have total control over everybody. I think you'll find it's not like that at all. It's simply a way of identifying people. No, it's not. Because as I've proven already, they're sneaking it in through the back door. My carbon allowance, which was one of the things I experimented with in Benidorm. I did experiment with anything else in Benidorm, and that includes drugs and ladyboys, all right? There was none of that experimenting going on. I was far too pissed. But what I did do in Benidorm was use one card. All the time I was there. I used it in the airports. I used it for... Oh, no. I didn't use it for the Ubers from the airport. No! That means that my carbon footprint is way more than it says on my bank account. I have let everyone down with my experiment, which is a shame, because last week when I found out that I had a carbon allowance on my bank account, it said I could only, what I'd spent was the equivalent of driving from London to Manchester, which is a very interesting analogy. Well, now it's slightly changed, and I spent that much on nasty carbon stuff that it's now turned into the equivalent of, God, I can't even remember. Look, I'll put a screenshot up, but I can't remember what it says, and I ain't got my iPad on me. Something like flying from London to Marrakesh or something it is. It's escalated a bit. I mean, it's complete bollocks. It's just a fairy tale anyway. But then when you go down and you have a look at how they've allocated my money that I spent and what I spent it on, bearing in mind, I've just realised that I spent 140, 260, 330. I spent 470 quid on taxis. And that's not included. That's not included in this, which is mental, because that's going to make this far, far bigger. I'd like to point out there were 6 of us, right? I'm not a man that just goes out and travels everywhere by taxi. There were 6 of us. I just organised the logistics because I had an Uber account. And it's still the cheapest way to get from an airport in a foreign country to the resort. I can't help that. That's just the way it is. I'm doing it. You walk out the airport, you go, bang. Where's Jorge? There he is. He comes round the corner in his Vito. We all jump in. He drops us off. Lovely. It's so hassle-free. 20 quid each, door to door. Fantastic. Not a fan of the shuttle bus. Used to do the shuttle buses years ago. Then got old, fat and lazy and went, I ain't driving around an island for 2.5 hours going to every fucking hotel just to save a £5. Just not doing it anymore. I don't care about the carbon footprint. Doesn't matter to me. It's not... Whoa. Funny I should say that. It does matter to me, and here's why. Because here's the breakdown of what I used carbon-wise, according to NatWest, in the last week in Benidorm. And getting to and from Benidorm. So there you have it. They've broken it down into various categories. 3 categories stood out to me. One, now, before I go through the categories, I'd like to point out, right, carbon dioxide is here, isn't it? There. It's there. I can push it up. I can push it down. I can swipe it side to side. It doesn't really have much weight. However, our glorious leaders have decided it does have weight, and rather a lot of weight. And they are going to make our allowances based on the weight of carbon, which doesn't weigh anything. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but there's not much weight there. I think the thing that's keeping me in my seat is gravity, not carbon dioxide. I mean, I could be wrong. Answers in the comments if I've got this wrong. So, I weighed myself this morning. I weigh, in metric, because everything's worked out in metric for carbon allowances. I wonder how the Americans feel about that. They probably don't give a shit. Quite rightly so. I'm not happy with America, but that's a story for another day. I weigh 115 kilos. Now, as you can tell, and as you've seen in videos, I'm not the smallest of people. I'm a rather large man. And I do weigh quite a lot. So I am a heavy lump. However, according to NatWest, I've spent 212 kilos of carbon allowance on fun and leisure. Now, they don't tell you what they've put in fun and leisure. They just tell you you've had 12 transactions in fun and leisure. They don't tell you what they are. I would imagine it was buying a round in the Red Lion or something. But, nevertheless, 212 kilos. That's virtually 2 of me. How much carbon makes up 2? What? And I've used that, and therefore I now need to repay that in some way. I mean, just listen to the words coming out of my mouth. It's utter bollocks, isn't it? But it gets worse. And it gets a lot worse because transport is 289 kilos. You can at least double that. You could probably treble it, to be honest, with the amount I spent. And I used the wrong bloody card because it's the one connected to the Uber account. But according to them, I spent 289 kilos. That's nearly 3 of me. So it's 3 of me on transport, 2 of me on fun and leisure, and then eating out 73 kilos, which is roughly the weight of me missus. Which means last week, I ate out me missus. You see, now, I'd love to say that I'd set up this whole 12-minute video just for that joke. I didn't, but it worked out really well in the end. Yeah. So, in total, with those 3 things, that's 290, 510, 580 kilos. It's 5 of me that I've spent in money. Try and get your head around this. I've spent in money 5 lots of me in weight in carbon that will mean in the future that next week I won't be able to do things because I've used up my carbon allowance by spending money on things that have weight allowances. This is 2025. Obviously, it's lovely that, as you can see, climate change has kicked in again. It's pissing down here. Funny enough, it's autumn here and it's pissing down. And in Spain, where they have nicer weather, it was nicer weather. What are the chances of weather being like it should be in the places where you go? Do you know what? In the Antarctic now, it's cold. What are the chances? This is climate change for you, where nothing changes except your ability to do anything based on a weightless product being given a weight allowance far in excess of its actual bodily mass to stop you from doing things. A bit heavy for a Saturday, this, isn't it? So that, in conclusion, we are getting a digital ID because the passport system that works really well doesn't work for people that want to cheat the system. So we all need to change the system because the people that don't throw their passport, they throw the passports over a dinghy side and then they arrive without a passport. We now need to change all of our lives because of them so that they can have a digital ID and claim things that we don't claim, that we will now need a digital ID for, not to claim, that will then be linked to our bank account, our children's schools, our children. That's what they're now talking about. And then it'll be linked to our carbon allowances, which will control what we can do with our lives on a daily basis. Because a bloke left France in a dinghy and threw his passport over the side. And that is it in a nutshell. What a conclusion. Future, my clearly very fat and very heavy and very carbon-laden arse.